And Barb, did you want to go first and introduce Kelly?
Oh, yes. So Kelly's there on my screen. So Kelly Conley is joining us today at the large group meeting, and then she'll start getting more involved with this project. But Kelly is the new Chief Operations Officer at Gopher State One Call. Joined us in mid-August. Been getting up to speed, attending a few meetings and conferences. So welcome to Kelly, and give her all your support. And I know she'll support all of you as well. So welcome, Kelly.
Thank you, Barb. Thanks, everyone.
Great to have you on board. Thank you. For the record, Underground Utilities Mapping Project Team of September 26th, 2024. There's the agenda is published. Yeah, it's free and loose, but that was intentional. Chair opening comments. I've got more than a few admin items I think that might run more than 5 minutes. And then we'll do project developments, FuzionView Demo, documentation plan. Spend a little bit more than normal time on that because that one is coming into focus much better. And then outreach promotion, we'll talk about that for a bit. And we'll wrap things up with throwing a bunch of spaghetti against the wall, taking a look at where we've come from and where we are and what should we be thinking about next, and then wrap up the show. I pass the baton. Barb, it's over to you. Opening comments.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Thanks for attending, everybody, today. We're at a great position in the project. We're working with 6 organizations for Pioneer Partners for onboarding their data and testing the system. And as we work through this next quarter, we should be ready to do some live connections in Q1 2025. So on the agenda, it says next steps. What should we do next? We really need your ideas and input after you listen to where we're at and take on where we're at as to, okay, where do we go from here? What are some ideas on some next steps? We're getting good interest from municipalities, getting some marketing materials put together, as you'll see, to all levels of organizations. But we really need your ideas on where do we go from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Moving right along to my typewriter. Here's what I got for you. Brad's probably going to jump in here, but the Minnesota Advisory Council on Infrastructure, they stood up under the premise of using the model from Michigan. And unfortunately, Michigan has a very weak, outside its academic world of the University of Michigan and Michigan State, blah, blah, blah. Outside that world, their geospatial infrastructure is pretty weak. And so as a result of that, that model legislation has no accommodation in it for anyone from the geospatial community being involved in this Council on Infrastructure. And there's a reality before us is that as we've worked through with this project, everything is somewhere, and the only way you figure that out is through geospatial technology. So somebody got a bright idea and said, hey, there's these open appointments up there that are available on the Secretary of State for any commission, council, or whatever of Minnesota government. They're openly published, and through clicking a button, if you want to, for instance, go participate in the Health Equity Advisory and Leadership Council, you can apply right there by clicking a button. It's a pretty straightforward process for any of these. Really amounts to filling in your information and offering a resume. They're more interested in, if you wander through this page, there's literally hundreds of openings. So they're more interested in trying to develop citizen involvement and engagement. And so lo and behold, sure enough, there's the Minnesota Advisory Council on Infrastructure. As Barb corrected a mistake I made and was able to find this, lo and behold, guess who put their hat in the ring? So wait, what? You're retired, Barb? Oh, like, when was the party?
Well, I know I haven't done my application yet, but I'm working with somebody who is has a nomination position. So we're meeting next week on on that position.
Okay, so
Because that group can nominate somebody and they think I'd be a good piece of that.
and that'd be a wonderful thing if we get somebody on that council that has got the experience that Barb does and working through this stuff. But Barb, you're still not going to escape the question. When's your retirement party?
Oh, I don't know.
Where's it going to be?
I don't know. Maybe
All right.
someplace fun, far, far away.
Okay, we've already done it, but we now know there's a new sheriff in town. So Kelly, thanks for joining us. The new chief operation officer of none other than Go Over Say One Call. And the floor is open, Kelly. If you'd like to offer any other thoughts or you just want to ride along for the rest of it, that's fine too. But
I'm going to ride along today. I'm just learning on all
okay.
this. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, okay, cool. All right, here we go. Quick notes, scribble them down. The next leadership meeting, if you want to crash that thing and don't have enough meetings to go to, the leadership team meets Friday, October 11th, 10 a.m. in the morning. And we've already pegged this group's next large group meeting to be Thursday, December 5th, 1 p.m. in the afternoon. Same time, same bat channel, same bat, whatever. So anyway, if you need to get a hold of me, there's my email address. That I think concludes the admin remarks. Is there anything else anybody wants to toss out? Otherwise, we're going to go into the swimming pool. Going once, going twice, gone. All right, off into the pool we go. First up is project developments in lane one. For your viewing pleasure, this is kind of the synopsis of where we've been on development over the past. We had a longer run here, 9 months, but we've really only got developmental records that go back to March 14th. I should correct myself. We've really been underway since June of 2023. We've been at this a little bit longer, but we only started tracking the level of development as indicated there in March. So why are there two different numbers there? Core software is the guts of what makes FuzionView work. And then within the contract, there are other things that need to be developed in conjunction that piggyback on the core software. And so, as you can see there, March 14th, 2024, the core software is at 35%. Overall project was at 21%. The June 13th, 89%. So that 3-month stretch as we came into spring, got the majority of the work done because we all know what happens in summer in Minnesota, and sure enough, it did. As you can see, we only made about 4% progress there, but this is the 4% of, if you will, cracking some of the hardest nuts in the whole effort here. So, and overall project development, as you can see there, up at about 88%. On September 8th, ShareGeo indicated it achieves core software beta level, and that is yet to be verified. It was coordinated this morning. OCC is the official sign-off organization for Gopher State One Call on any of what we have in the developmental process known as milestones. And beta is a milestone, and OCC will be involved in signing off on the vetting of whether or not the software has in fact reached beta stage. Production version 1.0 software, we're tracking right on time with the total 18-month schedule for the software development, and it's looking like they should be able to make the gate at the end of the year here to have the software completed. And then, 3 months, something like that, we're anticipating cleanup and final sign off by OCC that things are in fact the way they should be and ready to go. So that's the update on where we are in terms of progress. So the
And
question
Steve, just to clarify that 3 months is the first of 2025, but we could also start adding more players to the systems, right?
Yeah, and I have a schedule here we can take a
Okay.
look at. We've
Yeah,
in
thank
the
you. Go ahead.
leadership, the last leadership meeting that we had, um, uh, there was a calendar put up, and we'll talk through that again. So I left off that question mark, for good reason. Maybe we don't know exactly if we've got everything, but here's what we think's left to be done. And Bob probably will jump in and correct me if I've wandered off too far in the wrong direction here. We have an authentication piece that needs to be resolved, and it's a conflict basically on two security structures between the authentication system itself that's been installed and Google's Gmail capacity to play nice. And Bob's thinking it's a couple of settings and probably be able to get that cleaned up. But given what we've done to Bob, putting him on the road, we'll get around to it when we get around to it. Map interface. We currently are using a map engine that's based on the open source product known as GeoMoose, and they're changing that out for something that's a little bit lighter and more versatile for for driving how the mapping functions work. Map accuracy display. That's long been a discussion item in this group as to, and it came to the forefront recently when we talked to the electric folks down at Glencoe, about how they were using the Esri system to show where their electric wires were being run underground. And the issue was that they may have a whole bunch of stuff in a ditch, and it might otherwise look like on their system like it was one thing on top of another, but in fact, as it comes into the node there, they need to have some separation visually so they can tell the number of wires that are there. So Bob's going to be talking a little bit about how we're going to try to maybe look at that issue, and as it says there, we're going to be looking for feedback on this one in terms of trying to figure out what's the best solution for displaying that. And then the attribute styling, pretty much there. It's more down to fine tuning. The guts work has been done for the display of stuff. Now it becomes an issue of, do you like blue or red, or what style text do you like, and the rest of it. Automated onboarding, that has in fact been implemented, and we're waiting to do some tests with the connection partners that have been identified. And then this is probably a new one for pretty much everybody on the call. It's come to light as we've talked about from the very beginning. As we go along, we're going to discover stuff that we didn't maybe realize in the beginning. And what we're thinking here is that there's going to need to be some sort of extension piece that is built to facilitate the use of the core software by unique users. Example being the connection piece to go to OCC probably is not going to be the same as it's going to be to go to Pelican. There's going to need to be some unique settings arranged to make that work. So that issue there is trying to figure out how to selectively sort out, put into the correct buckets, what is in the core software and what's in this extension. And so that one will be a little bit of hair pulling to get worked out, but we're confident that's not going to be an issue. And then finish up the APIs, followed by, as it shows in red there, test, feedback, fix, test, feedback, fix, test, feedback, fix. The technical documentation will be more likely one of the last things that will be finalized, just because, there's going to be tweaking that needs to be done. So we'll be correcting typos, improving clarity as best we can in the documents, and so on. And then final acceptance by OCC. So that takes us down to talking about something that I don't know if everybody's aware of it, but lo and behold, on August 12th, PHMSA figured out that somebody over at Shared Geo actually could write a grant and decided to give another $100,000 to Shared Geo for a part of the overall game plan that we had all envisioned in the beginning, but we never had the money to build this other piece of software that will piggyback on what gets done with the release of FuzionView. And that's what's known as this field markup software capability, the ability from the field to report abandoned or unknown infrastructure is what that software build will be all about. So in total, the underground utility mapping project team hard money commitment as of now sits at $325,000. And the last of the first PHMSA money grant of $100,000 will be spent here by the end of September. What are we looking at? 4 days from now, 5 days from now. So that will be wrapped up, and we'll be starting with, effective on the 1st of October, a second batch of money from PHMSA, and that is earmarked or channeled, if you will, towards the development of this field markup software. And if you consider this development against where we started out, I think Travis looks is a lot more handsome than this original picture that I had of him. But here's where we were 3 years ago. No money, trying to figure out how to do this. No real support to speak of. And so, folks, we've come a long ways. And this PHMSA piece that we're, talking about is now going to fit into these 2 red boxes down here in the overall game plan that was developed for this project and polished and figured out how to move forward. This takes us down to the question that Barb asked about earlier. Here's the timeline review. On September 8th, FuzionView was reported out as being at beta, and as indicated, we're awaiting the confirmation of that in a discussion between Shared Geo and OCC. September 26th, well, you're here. It's the large group meeting. October 1st, work to begin on the new PHMSA $100,000 field markup grant. And then November 22nd, if you haven't looked at the calendar, that's the week before Thanksgiving. At the end of that week, that's the target to have the FuzionView production software development complete, because we're figuring there's probably going to be at least a month worth of loose ends and whatnot. So poor Bob and crew are sitting there with the reality of, between now and November 22nd, if you subtract out the meetings that Bob still has left to go to, he and his team have got roughly a month to get us from beta to, if you will, everything glued together and working seamlessly. What do you think, Bob? You going to give me a thumbs up?
Oh, is this where I'm supposed to jump in?
No, not quite. You can just give me a thumbs up.
Yeah, let me see if I can find the button. I don't use it very often, so.
Okay.
And Steve, Brad, the Minnesota APWA conference that we're presenting at is the day before that, November 21st. So
okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And I've got all the presentation things in a later slide, but good point to note is probably poor Bob's gonna get hauled into that one maybe too. So anyway, we'll see.
Hey, Steve, am I on? I can't see if my mic
You
is.
could jump in all you want, Brad. What do you got?
Well, wait, you talk way too fast, and so you didn't even let me jump in at the very start of the MIC thing. But here is an opportunity. So at the fall APWA conference, the Minnesota APWA conference. Now, I'm not sure how many of the people that are attending this session attend that, but Barb is doing a presentation and overview of the progress of this initiative. And about 1 hour later, there's going to be a MIC update. So it's the Minnesota version of MIC. So you kind of gave the MIC kind of the wrong impression of MIC. And I don't want to tear it apart too much, but MIC is
Have at it.
MIC is a statewide initiative of infrastructure in Michigan. It's every type of infrastructure. It's every public agency, and it's been in existence for actually about 30 years. Only the most recent 5 years have they brought all this stuff together. And so that was I can share the video with the group. I mean, I can send it over to you, Steve, and you can share it with the group. Here would be the point about the fall APWA conference. Barb is going to be presenting this, and a little later in that session, we'll have an open discussion about, okay, the Minnesota version of MIC is called Minnesota blah, 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 but there's a Minnesota version of it. And the discussion will be, okay, now that this is introduced in Minnesota, where do we go? It's much, much broader than this initiative right here. It's all asset management. It's all of the infrastructure. It's all of the agencies in Minnesota. This clearly plays a role in that. But and so it'd be great to have some input from people like here, especially your new director of the Gopher State One Call, Barb, if she could attend. Now, here's another opportunity. Barb only has 20 minutes to talk, but I think, Barb, you could still get a booth at the event and you could actually demonstrate your tool at the event. Bob could, not you, Bob could.
Yeah, let's talk about that. How many people are attending in the valley?
Well, okay, yeah. But remember, there's 500 to 600 people that attend that. They represent cities, counties, and state agencies all across Minnesota. These are the people that are actually managing the infrastructure, planning it, designing it, building it, maintaining and operating it. This would be a great group for you to demonstrate this tool in front of.
Okay, at the risk of getting us off track a little bit, and Steve has heard this statement before. His eyes are rolling, so I just wanted to follow up on what Brad just said. The FuzionView engine itself, while we're working with it and focusing on underground utilities, the engine has been developed with the idea that you could use it for any kind of business domain and pulling data together in the same way we're doing it for underground utilities. So I'm just throwing that out there as another sales path.
More opportunity for you to talk about it.
Yeah, of course I'm going to have to hire more people, but anyway, you get the idea.
Well, and let me make one more comment. Steve, did you actually attend our Minnesota IAM meeting and see the video?
I did not, but let me clarify my point.
Well, no, let me just say one thing and why I asked you the question. One of the main pieces of what MIC is rolling out is their version of this tool right here. And it's very attractive to an awful lot of people. So again, getting this message in front of the Minnesota audience is a real opportunity.
My only point was that if you read the legislation for this infrastructure council, is that there was no accommodation whatsoever in the attributes of the individuals that they were looking for, anything that relates their interest in finding somebody with geospatial expertise in infrastructure. That was the essence of my point. Not that the council is a bad idea or any of that stuff. So
well, I think they're looking much higher in the organization. They're looking at elected public officials and remember, it's all types of infrastructure. That's really the significance of what Michigan did. It's road funding, water funding, sewer funding, all of these lumped into one big bucket. And So it's just a higher level of individual that they're looking, higher in the organization that they're looking for. So
All right. Yes, sir. We got it.
we both have an
going.
opportunity here. I think that's the whole point.
Got it. All right. Next up is let's see here. Thanksgiving, then the large group meeting, December 5th. We're looking at the holiday vacations in there. January 31st, the goal there is to get all technical support documents complete. 1st of February, as Barb was relating earlier, we'll start looking at doing the soft sell onboarding of some Pioneer partners. Next large group meeting would be occurring in March, followed by CGA is putting together a promo. PHMSA has talked to us about the potential of doing a promo. And then you have the CGA annual conference. So if we keep that April timeframe kind of in mind, that would fit well with moving things forward to the point where we have everything wrapped up with a bow on it and ready to go by the time that conference rolls around. And then last but not least, maybe even as late as June, the final acceptance of the software. So Dean, were you indicating you wanted to jump in here? Did I miss something?
It was really only a question for Brad, and that is that given where it sounds like the group was headed as far as looking for more senior people, what surprised me is that it looked essentially like it was all government related, and that the private sector really wasn't anywhere to be seen in the listing of who was going to be placed on the council. So what is, I guess that leads me to what is the vision for this? Was this really designed to
Dean, what is the
deal with
vision for
government
what?
only,
What is
or
it?
no?
What is the division of what is the vision of what? This new initiative?
The advisory council.
Again, I'll try to say this real simple. I can
Yeah.
send you the video. There's a 20-minute video you can watch.
Okay.
It's to duplicate in Minnesota what Michigan has set up infrastructure-wise for the whole state. They require asset management. Underline the word require asset management for all roads and all bridges. It's strongly encouraged for all other types of infrastructure. And then you get funding by putting together an asset management plan and doing asset management. So those are the worker bees of the organization. But I think the significant thing over in Michigan, they have the elected public officials. All of them are aware of what this is, and they are supporting it, and they're funding it. And so that's what Minnesota is
Sure.
trying to bring over here, that
I see.
high level support.
Understood. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
And
Thank you,
there's
Brad, for the
no
clarification.
And there's no enforcement or regulatory policy. This is just like it says, advisory. Can't make regulations or any of that, those things.
Okay. Moving right along, takes us over to
Oh, I was going to say,
I
Steve.
I should
with
back
PHMSA,
up.
Yes,
ahead.
I had a question on PHMSA. So
Sure.
we should get a hold of the gentleman we met and get going on his presentation.
Understood.
So I can do that with you.
Yep. I'll do the outreach.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. Okay. Takes us down to before we leave this rascal. Project developments. Are there anything more we need to discuss? Going once, going twice. Gone. Okay, takes us down to FuzionView Demo. Just as a reminder, here's a very simplified view of the structure. As you can see right there again, core engine in the middle of all this. To get into the system, to get hooked up or whatever, there's a self-registration system to bring new facility operators on board. And then there's the automated transformation tools, which converts the inbound data. Running in the background over there on the right system, there's a system monitoring function and an authentication system as well. And it's basically breaks down below it into two basic functions. There's a system operator dashboard, which is the thing that OCC will be running in this instance. And that controls monitor the entire system, can check and see all active tickets, and it has access to the map and ticket list views. And then below that is the facility operator dashboard that's individual, same as the system operator dashboard functions, but they control their respective data, not the full system. And then within the world of the design engineers over there to the right, locators, excavators, it's the ability to view in totality within the dig site what is in fact being offered up by the systems of the various facility operators. And then only the design engineers will be able to download data. And it's got a capability both of map and the ticket list views. As indicated previously as a build status, I guess that should be the 26th. I'm a little confused. Core engine's 93% and the overall is at 88. As it sits right now, what we've got for participants in our developmental stage, the City of Glencoe, Minnesota Department of Transportation, City of Eden Prairie, City of Hutchinson, City of St. Paul officially came on board, and we've got City of St. Cloud waiting in the wings. Data users over on the right-hand side, One Call Concepts in theory. Pelican Corp has a couple of individuals on the call today. We've been going back and forth and trying to straighten out how to think about that piece, and then WSB Engineering. And I think before we turn it over to Bob, are there any questions up to this point? All right, Bob, the show is yours. I'll stop the share and you can grab it.
All right. Okay, so there are two main areas that we've been kind of concentrating our work on here recently. We've been distracted. Well, I've been distracted quite a bit with a lot of this presentation outreach stuff that we've been doing. But the two main areas that we've been working on is the administrative interfaces, the data provider, and the system operator interfaces. And we've been working on those two sides of things pretty heavily and keeping things going in that direction. And then the other piece of it is that we've been working on the zoomed in versions of the styling. So there's some things on that side of the equation that I'd like to show. And one of them is kind of related to the ticket viewer. So we've got the ticket viewer hasn't really changed since the last time I showed the large group. I mean, there's some real small level incremental things that we've added to the interface, but it's mostly been tuning things that we've been working on the mapping side of it. I mean, everything is kind of set up, the way it has been, since we started with the pop-ups and those kinds of things. So everything is pretty much the same there. But what we have been working on is this zoomed in version of things. So we just got this out of the meeting this morning, but the idea here is that there's different kinds of highlighting that have been put together for the interface as you zoom through and zoom in at a higher resolution. So you're looking at like a neighborhood level here. And this is purely experimental at this point. We're just trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work. The different kinds of views. I'm just going through a little snippet of the presentation that we got this morning out of the interface work that's going on. But these are different options that we're going to be using for buffering the line work and trying to figure out different ways of displaying the information that's on there. You can see that the highlighting, we're trying different things for when you actually pick on a feature, those kinds of things. So this is one area of concentration of work that we're working on. And then another piece is the admin interfaces that we're working on. And as Steve indicated in his graph, the bigger part of it here is how does the manager like OCC manage the system on the whole. So this is the administrative jump in point right here. We don't have everything kind of all set up as a kind of a work through piece of a demonstration here because we're still working on some of the administrative services and how they work on the back end. But for the most part, the presentation side of it has kind of been set. So we've got this hamburger menu that is set up for, and you'll have different options available to you depending on who you're logged in as. And you're currently looking at the administrative interface, which is going to have access to everybody that's got any information that's being shared with the FuzionView interface. And then when you jump over into a particular data provider's interface, for example, this one's MnDOT, they have 2 layers right now that they're sharing with us. And we can go in and do different kinds of things from this particular level, but we're only going to be able to see stuff that is pertinent to MnDOT. And the idea, one thing that we kind of ran into here too, is that you can have different data providers inside the same organization. So while we're talking about MnDOT, we're actually going to have multiple providers inside of MnDOT that are going to be sharing information with that caused us a couple of little hiccups while we were trying to put some of this administrative stuff together. But where we're going here is that you're going to be able to do things like actually go in here and edit the connections. Of course, the security stuff gave me a timeout, so hang on. When you jump into a particular layer that already exists, you actually have the ability as a data provider to go in and edit things. So if you change your services on your things that you're sharing with the FuzionView interface, you'll actually be able to go through the interface or through this tool set here and actually be able to edit things inside of these screens here for managing how the connection works, how the data is mapped over into the FuzionView engine, and if you're going to, whether or not you need to like add a new data set, which you'll have the option of doing as well. So you can jump over and if you're jumped in as yourself, so as MnDOT, if you wanted to add a new data set, you basically can do that from inside of your own login as well. So the basic information here, you just fill in the information that is here. And there's actually going to be validation steps in the sequence here. There's probably going to be one after the first couple of fields here for validating that the service connection works. These are little pieces that we're working on right now, but the majority of the information is already available. We've actually tested this through and made it work with things that are already known data sets and connection services. So we know that the main elements in here work, but now we're just kind of working through the workflow and how this is all going to be put together for making it easier for the data providers to understand what they're looking at. So the idea would be that, if you're working with a REST service or a WFS, you'd fill in the first couple of pieces of information there, which would be a name and a data source or a service, a WFS or Esri REST service. And it'll validate that by basically giving you a list of all the services that are available from that service once the connection is made. Once that validation is made, then you'd go through and start doing the basics here of which field is the geometry name, which layer classification it goes in, that kind of thing. Those pieces there are kind of the crux of what we've been working on. And I don't want to go through, in too much detail here, but are there any kind of main questions that anybody wants answered?
Bob, could you talk through the issue of the automated onboarding?
The point of that is along the lines of, if we go back up to the this level here, if you wanted to automate it, or where we're going with the automation here is if I want to add a new data provider, the administrative interface will basically just send them a request to jump in at this point here. And the idea would be that they just send or they put in an email address, and then from there, the process will be automatic for them to go and set up a login in the FuzionView interface. And then once they've got a login, they'll be able to jump into their own administrative interface like this. In other words, they'd have their own login once that email and stuff has gone through. They won't have anything listed because nothing will be in here. All they'll be able to do is add a new data set. But the idea here is to make it the process of getting an onboarded person or an onboarded organization set up and ready to go on their own. We're trying to make it as simple as possible. It's almost too simple. We're going to have to explain how this all works in a very simple way. But the idea here is that we're trying to automate it to the nth degree where we can.
Bob, I have a question. Have you
Mhm.
made any more updates to the user interface and the way things look?
The pieces that we've added to are more along the lines of those validation aspects. This piece of it here, how the connections are actually pulled together. We've fleshed out a couple of the pieces in the hamburger menu here.
But what about the map itself and the way the map looks?
I've got a question. Do you have a satellite view?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes, that's available in there.
Okay.
So we can jump into a particular. We can put any kind of views available like that, that are available online in any form there.
Okay.
We're actually going to make this a lot more efficiently operating. The tiled data set that you're looking at here is it's not operating at 100%. We got different ways that we're going to manage that. But where I'm going with that is that we can put any aerial photography in behind the scenes that are available. One of the big deals though that we've had discussions about is how do we verify or validate the accuracy of the aerial photography, because we want to make sure that if somebody's using it for doing any kind of measurement stuff in the map, that they're measuring from things that are pertinent.
Mhm.
So. Barbara, what was your question?
This view, have you done any more updates on it?
No, we haven't really messed with any of that other than the work that I talked about in the styling stuff that we're talking. This is the stuff that we're doing at the real high zoomed in. This is in our development environment. We haven't pushed this up to the server yet. So this is where we're getting into that, how we're going to do the buffering of the line work, what it should look like. We're just about ready to kind of convene a group for getting feedback on this side of the equation. This is tuning of, this will be available inside of the main ticket viewer once we got it all figured out and how we want it to work.
Yeah, that's great zooming. Should tie in with our white lining work at Gopher State One Call.
Correct. Yep, that's what it's all about. And then, how we were going to handle the buffering and for accuracy, both accuracy and the legal limits that you're supposed to use for, digging, all that kind of stuff. Any other questions?
Bob, you'd indicated that you'd made some progress on the attribute displays. Is that available?
That is not available yet online. Where the attribute, the pieces that there's going to be more information is essentially what's going to happen. The list here will get a little bit bigger. Basically, what we're going to do is display everything that we have. There's about 3 or 4 fields that we're not displaying. And then we're also going to display them even if the information is not available, we'll actually mark it as no data. It's basically the optional fields and those kinds of things. We just felt that it'd probably be better to display everything that we're grabbing rather than leaving it out if it didn't have any data available, which is how we have it currently.
But I thought there was some tagging you were going to do on zoom in.
It'll be related to the accuracy and how that's going to all work. But what specifically were you thinking?
Well, I thought you'd been working on the display of attribute information. For instance, whether it was electrical line or
yeah. Okay. I don't have a screenshot of that. Okay, what Steve's talking about is we've actually prototyped setting up the line work so that it actually there's labels on the lines now that follow the lines. It'll tell you what exactly it is when you're zoomed in. There's a 3-character code that we used for these classifications of different infrastructure types. So you'll see those 3-letter codes on all of the line work when it pops in. We're still kind of trying to figure out how to display those labels on point features. I've got an idea about how to do that in my mind, but haven't developed it fully yet. And those things are in the development environment as well. So we've actually got those going. I don't have a screenshot handy for that one. Sorry. That one actually slipped through the cracks on my presentation setup today. Sorry, everybody. I just got back from a presentation yesterday, so I'm kind of discombobulated there. But anyway, yeah. So we've worked on how the features are actually labeled when you're zoomed in, at a real high level like this. And where possible, there'll be a 3-character code that will actually be listed right on the line, telling you what kind of a feature it is. And then we've changed some of the styling on the line work as well, based on the quality of the data that is being returned. For the most part, a lot of the line work is going to be turned into a dash line. Actually, I think I can actually show that, to tell you the truth, now that Steve pushed me towards it. We can start from here. So in our original report that we put together for these presentations, the line work that is being displayed here is actually what we're going to be using for that 3-character code. I'm still working on it, but you can see here that the lines are going to change to dashed unless it's QA1 or the best quality. In other words, survey level quality. It'll be a solid line, just indicating visually that this is very accurate. Otherwise, it'll be a dash line with the intent that the end user knows that, not to put too much emphasis on where it's actually located on the map. And then the idea here, we're going to work on these and make them a little bit better. But the idea here is that those 3-character codes will be more visible. I've got some ideas about making that a little bit better, but this has actually been pushed up to the server from the development environment and what Steve was asking about. Sorry about that, Steve.
Okay. Any other questions for Bob?
Yeah, I have one around the geoid. When you receive a file from the various utility companies or data providers, how do you know what datum and geoid they're using? Do they have that as part of the file they send you? Like, is it a shape file generally, or what formats do they send that to you in?
We're kind of settled on an EPSG code. So if they have an EPSG code, which is what is that? The gas. I can't remember what EPSG stands for, but it's basically an international code that they use for different mapping projections, and just about every projection has one. Even if they don't, we can work with Proj 4 as well for converting from one coordinate system to another, including geodes. So wherever that has to happen, we might come into, I know that there's problems when you get into like a county level coordinate system, those kinds of things, at least in the US anyway. We've run into those kinds of things, but we can actually figure out that, process if we need to by hand.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. And the other question I have is related to your imagery. You're talking about the accuracy of the imagery. Can you overlay lot lines over top that imagery, like so you can see where the edge of the property is, or how
Yes. Yeah, we're planning on doing that for the state of Minnesota, this particular project. That the state of Minnesota actually has a cadastral data set for the whole state. So we'll be able to pull that in. It runs into the same problems, though. We want to make sure that we have a very accurate data set. And most of it is pretty well laid out from that perspective. So, but we are going to be adding that in. There's some stuff that we want to change over from our very early development. Some of the stuff that's in the interfaces right now, that are map related, like the aerial photography and those kinds of things. We're going to pull them out of the FuzionView proper core engine stuff and make it into a separate service that the core engine will go and retrieve from. So
perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
This is
Anyone
Dan
else?
Colby here. Do you mind if I jump in? Just a quick question.
Sure, go ahead, Dan. Absolutely. That's what we're
Yeah,
here for.
so I know you had mentioned quality levels, with the dashes. Are you looking at implementing any of the ASCE quality levels like A, B, C, and D? Because a D would be what I would call a utility record that's not not verified, doesn't have an authoritative stamp on it, for example, a survey. And I was just kind of curious if that was something you guys were looking at doing. And the only reason why I bring it up, because many of you may know, I'm the chair of the ASCE Utility Infrastructure Data Exchange and Security Committee. And so as far as the quality levels, A, B, C, or D, and then there's on the 75 standard, there's going to be what we call accuracy levels too. So I was just kind of curious if you were considering quality levels or following the ASCE quality level standards.
We did have quite a few discussions in this arena in the past here, and what we came up with was the idea of using kind of this human readable version of things, which with the idea is that the sub-centimeter level is going to be that highest accuracy stuff that we're talking about, and then everything else is using kind of I don't want to call it looser, but the idea would be that it's a way of saying, without getting ourselves in trouble, this is the level of accuracy that you can expect. So the data that comes in at the feature level, and we can change this, but what the group has come together so far on is this level of classification. So you got sub-centimeter, sub-foot, sub-meter. I know mixed units, I get it, but there's not really anything under a meter that kind of equates to a foot. Greater than a meter, georeferenced, digitized, the idea there is that you scanned a map and georeferenced it, and then literally hand drawn. So those are the kind of the classifications that we've come together with on the project so far, and in a way that doesn't really get any feathers ruffled as far as accuracy is concerned.
Yeah, and one other thing I noticed, it was brought up earlier in the meeting, was about you have multiple lines running in down the same conduit, and you're looking at a way to be able to demonstrate that on the map so that people knew how many facilities were in that particular trench, for example. We're looking at that too at ASCE from a visualization standpoint, but more in a 3D model aspect, not in a 2D sense. But one of the things I just thought about that might be worthwhile, when you have a trench, are you where you might have multiple communication lines. Let's say there's five of them that are in there. One way to be able to demonstrate that on the map would be where in your information dialog box, it could be a conduit feature or a ditch feature, and then in that you could then list all of the facilities that fall within that ditch. Does that make sense? I was just an idea, just worth throwing it out there.
Yeah, it does make sense, but we've had discussions about this as well. We've kind of gone down the route of, for the most part, wherever you have stacked features. We haven't gotten into, the idea of, okay, this cable is actually a bundle of 5 different things, or it's in a conduit with 5 other wires, those kinds of things. That doesn't mean that we can't handle that, but we haven't gotten into connection with anybody that's providing that kind of data yet. So we don't know where the standardization on how the data would be stored and managed would flip over into the FuzionView side. We have talked about it and discussed it, though, where you've got that like shadow ducting kind of idea, and all that's, you could have 16 shadow ducts, for example, down a street that are represented by one line. How do you say that, there's 5 different cables pulled through that shadow ducting, and display that? And I've got some ideas about how we could do that, but we have to get into a partner that's got that kind of situation in play. But if you've got somebody that wants to test that kind of thing out, we can make that happen, wherever it needs to.
Sounds good. Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you.
Dan, I would say this: we're certainly interested in exploring all of this with you further. I mean, a big part of the idea behind this is to furnish more useful information to the design engineers that are responsible for designing projects. And, I feel like ASCE can play a key role in helping to make all this more user-friendly and usable. We want to, create something that's going to be useful for the end users. Having said that, I see difficulties here because the ASCE standards, require an opinion of the PE, as I understand it. And there's frankly
Depends.
not
Yeah.
a lot of, not a lot of data that has that qualifies for that quality level.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, well, the ASCE 38 standard is really the SU standard, and that requires a professional engineer or surveyor to sign off on that because they got the errors and errors and emissions, those kind of things.
Yes.
When it comes to the 75 standard, though, it's more of an accuracy standard. It's not a quality level standard where you put an actual certified stamp of A, B, C, or D, but it's more of a level 1 through 5, which is very similar to what he was just showing there as far as centimeter accuracy, those kind of things. But it gets down to actual levels. The
So
other
we should
thing
have some
too-
further discussions about that offline and
Sure.
maybe
And
next
the
month.
other thing too, just I know I've presented to this committee in the past, if I remember correctly. I've done so many of them, but I'm pretty sure I did for some of the work that we were doing. And one of the things too that we're, just so you know, that we are addressing as well is the SSI aspect of everything. It's the sensitive security information. And we're dealing with multiple agencies, Homeland Security, the DoD, TSA, CISA, those groups, and what we're finding is a lot of this, getting down to what needs to be shared with what user, what type of clearances may be needed, especially if it's near a military base or some kind of a sensitive area, so to speak. But if you guys are looking at any of that kind of stuff and you want to collaborate with our committee and with the ASCE on what we're doing there with guidance, we'll be more than happy to speak with you.
Yes, I think that would be a good topic for follow-up as well.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and
Appreciate it,
Dan,
guys, great presentation. I didn't mean to hijack it. I apologize.
no problem. I mean, like I say, we've discussed a lot of these things in the past as well, but the other piece that I wanted to kind of push or mention here is that, when we do our pop-ups here, we're really trying to get to the very basic information about what's there and what, where it is and what it is, not necessarily about, kind of its function and how it's
Yes.
connected to the rest of the world kind of thing. So that should appease you there. And then on pop-ups, you were talking about like the 3D aspect. There's probably a method here for handling some of that stacked information side of things that we were talking about, where we could have a more involved pop-up to display things in a vertical orientation, I guess you'd say. But what I just wanted to say there is that is kind of leading into that field collection stuff that we're going to start another application or the other project extension on. Is going to lead into that quite a bit for when we're pulling information back up from the field, because we're going to have to worry about how do we represent information that came down from the records before they went out and located, and then once they got out and located, how do we present that information back onto the map and show those both the old record and the new record in the same interface, and try and figure all that kind of stuff out. So there's more work that needs to be done down at this bottom level and how information is presented.
Sounds good.
Great discussion. Are there any more questions? Okay. With that, Bob, I'm going to steal a screen back in business, I think. Okay, here we go. Takes us down to lane 3, documentation plan. This has been actually a large chunk of effort over the last 3 months, and for good reason. I'll walk you through what we vision the plan to be right now. As soon as I get the Zoom thing where I need to have it. Okay, handouts, promotional. There are 2. General informational trifold and what we call a decision maker overview. So I'm pleased to announce that the trifold has in fact been completed. There's a lot of batting around with it to get it to where we wanted to have it, but it's ready to go as an item that can be distributed at a booth, say at the APWA event. So there you go, Brad. And then we moved on to working on this decision maker overview document. And what you're looking at here is the the edit of version 6, and there's 4 pages that look like this. So the idea here is I'm just simply pointing out that this isn't a one and done thing on trying to move any of these products through. Currently, this is over at OCC for work, and I think Mike Sovereign here from Share Geo is actually taking a look at how maybe we can tweak some things there. Handouts, technical. We settled in on using an approach that's largely used in the emergency management community, and that's these things called coffee break training. They're based the approach is developing info sheets that can easily be added as a project gets developed and there's better understanding of what information might be needed for folks rather than trying to create one simple manual and then calling it done. So the approach then to augment the other items that are available will to be break these info sheets out. And as it sits right now, we're looking at 4, getting ready for FuzionView, the technical steps to connect to the system, understanding FuzionView information security, and then number 4 being frequently asked questions. Now, Karen did a quick whip up of, for instance, here's an example of, this is nowhere near a final document. Please, we're just trying to show conceptually how we would try to do something like this. And the team had already worked through, what kind of information would you want to make available for folks 6 months to a year out in advance, so that they could get some ideas about what would they have to do to get ready to play in this system. And so, as indicated earlier, Karen put together for us an example of what it might look like. And conceptually, that's what we'd be doing with these additional info sheets. So that's the plan for how we hope to break out, if you will, the disposable information that would be needed to support this effort. User information from the technical side is going to get embedded online, and that will amount to a quick start guide, a user manual, and some hover pop-ups. And here's an example. Again, Karen's been working her heart out on trying to get all of this stuff developed as the software is moving along. As conceptually stuff gets ironed out, then she works through trying to do the descriptor on it. And obviously, things are going to continue to change, but the bulk of the understanding is being developed at the same time that the software is moving through its process. And again, that's a user manual, and within the actual interface itself, there will be the ability to go over the top of something, and informational hover will pop up, will come up that will show what this item is and answer any questions you have about it. Operator info, it basically breaks down into 2 categories that I mentioned previously, and that will also be embedded online. Facility operator information and system operator. The difference being, obviously, what a facility operator is, but the system operator, think of that as Pelican Corp or OCC or whoever might enable it within their call system. And so, again, within the build out, we're already working on, how these different elements work and how to think about them. And once again, a lot of work that is going to need some tweaking as we move towards a final product. Then kind of the last piece that's going to get put in place from the technical side would be a software installation guide. Many of you are familiar with an area called GitHub, but the idea would be that both making available the technical information required for the programmer community to download the software and get it up and running in their system would be done through a downloadable PDF, but also backing it up with the capability through GitHub. And then open source documentation and support, kind of all bundled together in that approach. Finally, this is a hotly contested issue that we bat around a lot. But it ends up being at the end game of all of this. We're going to want to have some sort of a white paper that gets published to the community to help them understand the deliberation process that we went through, why we decided to do things the way they were done, all those sorts of things that hopefully will reinforce for others what this project was about. And if we screwed up somewhere along the line, they've got the template to figure out, what should be done different. And there's kind of two different ways to approach that. You can do something for the general public, and then more along the lines I was speaking about earlier. You can do an academic or scientific approach to that descriptive piece. And the compadres over there in the United Kingdom that are working on this National Underground Asset Register project, they've been publishing a series of these white papers, and here's one of their latest ones. Gives you a sense of what that would look like. So that would be the documentation plan, if you will. Any questions on that as I roll to the final thought on this one? That being, we will make all of this stuff available and downloadable off of the FuzionView website once we tell Google where it is. And if you don't know, it's nothing more than FuzionView.org, and FuzionView spelled with a Z. It's continuing to be built out at the same time with all this other documentation stuff. So before we move on to outreach and promotion, any questions? Going once, going twice?
Keith, yeah, I'm curious to know if there's been any thought about making FuzionView and the whole process available to private institutions like universities or port authorities.
Absolutely. Well, it's going to be released as open source, so anybody can grab it and anybody can do what they want with it.
Well, my thought is that someone like at a university might want to have, even though they might not participate in a public one call process, maybe they're not members of the one call,
Yeah,
but they could utilize a one call type ticket process. So there might be an opportunity here for Pelican or OCC to develop the same process or same software for private use as opposed to public use.
sure.
It was just a thought.
Yeah, Bob's probably the guy to answer to that, and we know where he's going to go, and it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and you can use it for anything.
Pretty much that's my answer.
And,
But
and it even comes with steak knives.
yeah, but our bigger deal here is trying to make it easier for people to share again, everything with everybody. But that's our intent.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay. We've been talking about poor Bob. And here's a sense of how crazy it's been. This is really only since September. And there were a couple of other meetings prior to that in the quarter. I believe there was a Sumdex presentation and a couple other things that went on. But the reason I highlighted stuff in yellow is to give you visibility on not just Bob, but Barb and Adam wandering around the countryside, letting folks know about what's going on here. And so we're looking to use that as a point of leverage in what we're calling socialization. Getting the word out early enough so people are thinking about this, and hopefully that socialization will assist us in the effort on the backside of keeping the project so that it doesn't get cut out from underneath it by stuff that's misinformation, if you will. So to our speakers that are out there wandering around, Bob, you just finished both at Phosphor G and MCAP and Walnut Creek, the notification centers. Do you want to add anything about those presentations or
Well,
what
I,
you're
I,
thinking.
I did already inform Adam that I was going to offer him up as sacrifice on the one from Walnut
Ah,
Creek yesterday. So, Adam, you're on.
I thought it went incredibly well. It's the right audience. You know, this is a group that is primarily made up by the specialists from the one call centers across the country. So we had about 25 people in person and another 25 online, but every single one of them is directly connected to the GIS process of the one call centers. Bob did a fantastic job of displaying the product, answering the questions that the group had, and giving them the insight they needed to contemplate the use for their centers. I know we've already had 2 people express direct interest in implementing the tool for their states outside of OCC areas. So good interest, and it was well worth the impact.
And the presentation lasted a half an hour, and then the questions went pretty much a half hour, didn't they, or so? 25 minutes, 30
I
minutes?
think we took about an hour out of the 2-hour meeting dedicated just to this process.
Cool.
and what Bob's failing to tell you is that he trusted Google Maps and ended up off the freeway on his.
Turned
Oh,
a
There's
1 hour
a there's
drive
a
into
way longer
3-hour
story
drive.
there.
Something about driving on country back roads on a 3.5 hour trip that should have taken him an hour and a half. Anyway, never trust Google Maps. All right. So here's kind of the final thinking on the game plan here. This is going to be, as we all know, a very unique rollout product. And as we talked about last time we were together, critical in that effort is going to be controlling the message. And so, right now we're in stage 1, if you will, a socialization effort, which is encapsulated in the current outreach efforts. Then we have the potential that organizations that hear about this through the socialization process typically are smaller kinds of places or that already know members of the leadership team and offer up their organizations for connection testing or other elements of testing. And so that informal outreach gains interest and from the bottom level, and Bob's been designated as the node to talk to for implementation on that. Then as everything gets settled down, we got ourselves a real piece of software and we got our outreach materials and technical, documents completed. Then we're talking about doing this outreach piece to the top 20 or other organizations that we identify. But that was kind of from the leadership team, the initial thinking about where we should go next. And so that's coming in at the top, and that's really a message only being delivered by members of the leadership team and primarily Barb for as long as Barb stays with us. So, Barb, we hope you're going to be with us for a while yet because you are a critical player. Then down to 4, our outreach campaigns. We have the potential of doing some stuff from the state avenue through my connections through the Emergency Preparedness Council or committee rather, and also as Barb mentioned earlier, PHMSA, CGA, and there's some other organizations that may be able to provide us with some endorsements to build momentum as we move out starting in the first quarter of 2025. And then finally, there may be some ways to encourage adoption, strategy to be determined. We were thinking if we can focus on Minneapolis, Bloomington, Rochester, and Duluth, get them on board, that starts to be a capability that builds. And maybe policy, or we don't know where that might go. Is there some way that you can only play if you're use the system if you're a member, and the co-op approach? But just some thoughts there on for those of you that are not that don't get a chance to be involved in leadership team meetings, that's kind of the flow that we're thinking out there. And probably Barb, maybe do you have anything you want to contribute or add to that?
No, but I think some of the ways into Bloomington, Rochester, Duluth is through the GIS department in terms of socialization and then meeting their leadership. So I think Bob and I would be key at those three cities, Bloomington, Rochester, and Duluth. We have a connection to Minneapolis, and we'd have to leverage that as well through the water department.
So Steve, this is again, one more time to remind you, at the fall APWA conference, Barb will be speaking about this, and Minneapolis will be at the meeting, Bloomington will be at the meeting, maybe some Rochester people and maybe some Duluth people. But it's one thing to tell them that, it's quite another thing to show them. And that's where, again, I encourage you to at least think about having the booth set up so that you can actually show this tool. Here's one other tidbit, and I'd forgotten the name, but in Michigan, they have a Dig Once project portal project. And again, the Michigan initiative is what's being brought into Minnesota. And that has an awful lot of attraction to people, but it'll go through the engineering group, not the GIS people. The engineering group are the people that are going to approve this. And one other thing, Barb knows this thing, this little factoid. Remember, Hennepin County has already set up a project very similar to this, but the private utilities put the kibosh on it, and right now it's manual, it's not automated. So Hennepin County is another opportunity, and the place to hit them is at the APWA fall conference. So Barb, you're going to be speaking to them, but if you set up a booth, Bob can actually show
Maybe
it
we
to
should
them.
have a booth there, Brad.
I think that's a hell of an idea, Barb.
Why, you know, how come
have I
you're
convinced you
fighting
yet,
me
Barb?
that the whole time?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll jump on board. Brad, do you think we should have a booth?
I think
Right.
so, yeah.
Oh,
No, those are good.
Bob does a great job. Bob does a great
Yeah.
job showing it off.
Absolutely.
Oh, and one other thing. Remember, you talked about you've got some partners, and I saw Eden Prairie. I saw
Mhm.
Ramsey County.
Yeah.
They will be at the meeting. I mean, literally, if you can show some of their data, how they're participating or how
Yeah,
they
I went to
envision.
I went to a sewer and water meeting a couple months ago, and the man from Eden Prairie got up and talked more than I ever could about
Well,
this
great.
project. Exactly.
Thank you,
Okay,
Brad.
I'm going on.
That's a good thing to have brought to our attention, really. And we'll at the next leadership meeting, October 11th, we'll roll that out and beat it up. So thank you. Okay, I think it's time to get out of the pool. So here we go. I guess before we do that, anything more here on the outreach effort? Going once, going twice, gone. Okay, out of the pool we go. And so that takes us down to open discussion. What should be our next steps? So I got a couple of slides here first. Please don't go to sleep on me. We got 3 axioms, right? Well, actually,
Steve,
go ahead.
Bob Bishop is wanting to say something.
Okay, I'm sorry. Bob, please go ahead.
I did raise my hand just as we were getting out of the pool.
Oh.
On the idea of controlling the message, everything that's going on here is becoming more commonly talked about at industry events. It's gaining a lot of momentum. And I think I've brought this up before, but I just want to say it again. I think it's at a really good place to create a product page like on LinkedIn that people could refer back to see some things to help maintain the control of that message, to share updates, to build engagement. I think it's a really worthy endeavor that would coincide with the efforts that are happening even today.
Great comment. You read my mind. You'll see.
Yeah,
you'll
I've
see.
been having the same kind of thought here about last month or month and a half. We're not quite ready to kind of pull in the general populace, but I mean, we're really close, and it's ready to go.
So Bob, could you elaborate a little bit as to what and how you're hearing this?
Yeah.
Just help us with the scope.
Yeah, so just creating a FuzionView product page on LinkedIn. I think you're safe to do it even now because it takes an effort to build the follower base before
Mhm.
people start seeing this in their
Sure.
feed in a regular fashion. So I appreciate the hesitation on timing, but from my experience, I think you're pretty safe right now. Even to get the page built out, put a lot of historical post and content into it. So you're building it, and you can hold on hitting the publish button for a little while longer if you choose. But I think right now is a great time to start building that out.
Could you just comment on why you're saying this? What are you seeing that we may, because we're so close to it?
Yeah,
and you have a much broader reach through the whole
I would
industry.
say, yeah, I would say in a generalization, you could hear the project that's going on in Minnesota. It's in reference to this. A lot of people have some idea of what's going on because they've heard talks about it. Maybe they can't put a name to the project. But I think that there's enough conversation about this going on in the industry that it's justified to have a place for the industry to look back to, just to even one, validate its existence, two, correct any misconceived notions that may exist today, or three, just to bring some clarification to the larger audience that knows just a little bit, but I think that clearing that messaging up by representing yourselves on LinkedIn, it's going to help with that adoption that you're soon to move to.
Okay.
Great
Thank you.
comments, Bob. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You bet. You bet.
As I was indicating earlier here, that we've kind of worked our way to where we are today using two primary axioms. First is we are growing a tree. It's, nobody wandered into the process that we've wandered into thinking we were going to flip a light switch and one day we were going to go from having nothing to everything working perfectly. And we figured this is going to be a long-term commitment. We're going to have to take our time and we're going to have to grow a tree. The second one was we aren't going to get it right the first time. If NASA, Bezos, and Mr. Musk can manage to get around to blowing up rocket ships when they've got unlimited money and some of the best minds working to get themselves into space, we all have to, if you will, take a step back and realize we're going to make some mistakes, and we made plenty of them along the way, and we just pick ourselves up, fix it, get going, and that's that. So here's the third one that I want you to think about, because this is kind of where the discussion goes. We will need to pass the baton. What do I mean by that? Well, here's what I'm thinking of where we're at. The Underground Utilities Mapping Project Team Relay Team, we don't want to drop the baton. So we got three things that are going to be going on here. We're going to be transitioning from software development to outreach and onboarding, because we've had all this emphasis on largely building a product. Now we're going to need to be largely focused on doing our outreach and onboarding. The second one is managing the startup of the field markup project. That's going to be in its own separate lane. It's going to be its own thing. So we're going to have to figure out how to support that while we're also doing this, other piece back over at FuzionView. And finally, moving FuzionView into OCC at the completion of, or Pelican, or, some commercial entity out there, or some college, or whatever it might be, at the end of this initial onboarding and testing. And then there are a whole slew of random issues, like what freight trains haven't we anticipated? Should we start working on a rural consortium to enable GIS for small utilities? How should we fund software maintenance and enhancements after release? Do we need to create peer testimonials? Do we Connor, are you still with us? Do we need to create
Hey,
training videos? How do we leverage social media? There you go, Bob. What organizations will give us the most bang for the buck, time spent to create buy-in? Is it time to talk to insurance companies about appropriate rate structure? You know, are there big dogs that can help create buy-in? Example that I just saw the other day about Microsoft being like insanely mad that some utility group was out doing whatever they were doing and they cut a major Microsoft fiber cable. You know, maybe we can talk to Microsoft and say, hey, how about encouraging the process from your end? What do you think? And is there a role for Minnesota government project going forward? So I just threw out a whole bunch of stuff to like ponder a little bit. And that takes us all the way back to what the original question was, like, what should be our next steps? And as Barb mentioned earlier, and I'll reopen the floor to Barb to stimulate the discussion, you know, we're in this so close, and just like you just heard from Bob Bishop, the issue of we don't see everything. So we're opening the floor and saying, what should we be thinking about now? Anyway, Barb, you got anything more you want to add to that?
No, I didn't, but if there are certain cities or companies that people have connections to, if there's folks on the call that want to help review the plan and the steps, like Bob just volunteered on chat to help us with the LinkedIn page. We got some friendly push from Brad on the booth, some of the literature, how to do social media the best. So those with those skills and interest, please reach out to us and say, I'd like to help with this, because we're just starting this. And most of us, other than a few, are not the social media communication experts.
Come on, there's got to be at least one thought on what we should go after. Oh, all right, Bob. Thank you for bailing me out. Please go.
Oh, there you go.
You got it. I guess another perspective is maybe we're definitely considering partners in the one call space, one call concepts, Pelican Corp. There's tentatively partners out there that are just focused on the ticket management side, and just wondering if that's been considered. I know there's companies out there that's what they do, is ticket management. And do we need to hear their perspective, plug them in? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good idea, Bob. We've had conversations with Cortera several times. Maybe it's probably good to get back with them. It's been fairly recent, but not for a month or two.
Yeah.
And then Earth is the other one.
Okay.
That we know, but we haven't talked with them. And then I think there's Boss. I don't know if there's more than that.
There is. There's another company, Launch Point.
Launch Point. Okay.
And I can follow up with an email. I could get you in contact there.
Okay.
Hey Bob, quick question. What would it take to have like a portal or a link on your guys's service that would allow your clients to go ahead and quickly get signed up?
I don't know that it would be that difficult. If Ryan is still on the call, I think he would speak to that question better, because he handles the majority of the products. But I mean, that's due to Pelican's involvement today. That's definitely an initiative that we would want to pursue.
I think that's a perfect way to market.
I agree. Ryan, are you still on the call?
I didn't see him, Bob.
Yeah, I'll follow up with Ryan and plant that seed.
Yeah, the other idea I have is one of our test cities, Hutchinson. Their GIS data all goes through Logis. And when we're ready, Logis manages quite a few cities. So that's that would be it has to be a well-planned and implemented discussion with the Logis people.
Connor, Gavin, can I call on you for a moment? Are you available?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
So Connor, please introduce yourself and then float the idea about training videos. What you were thinking, where there might be some synergy on as we get ready to roll out the ability to do something.
Yeah, so I work for Planet Underground, which is a sister company of Staking University. And some of you guys might know that, but it's founded by my boss, Mike Paralak. And it's been around for, I think it's going to be the 25th anniversary, actually. So they've been doing hands-on practical training on site in our facility in Manteno, Illinois, or we can go to you. But during COVID, we basically took the entire curriculum from Staking University's training and put it into an online LMS system. Actually, we partnered with Paradigm to make that. And when I say we put the whole curriculum, we really did. We have like over 500 minutes of locator content. And that's videos that, we show videos of people locating. We have a GoPro on the locator, so you can see, what he's doing exactly on the screen of the locator, as well as a drone that we put graphics for where all the pipes are and everything. And I just think that, if you guys were looking for training videos, I don't think you were going to try to create your own content. Took us about 20 months to put all this together. So we have everything that you might need. And it's actually more than just locating videos. We've got a one-call ticket program, utility mapping program, basic utility knowledge program, and some other stuff. So I just think it would be a perfect partnership, honestly, depending on what you guys are looking for. And then you could pretty much just plug it into your system. And I think it would be the easiest option for you. And the training is universal. So it's really just the science of how to locate. We don't go into any specific, state laws and all that stuff. It's really universal training. We've had a lot of good feedback. So I know we talked about it, Steve, at the CGA show. But like I said, I think it would be a good fit. And there's honestly not really any programs like it that we've seen in the industry. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for, I wanted to float the idea because I think the reality is I think Travis was the one that originally talked about creating, like 1-minute clips on, Facebook or whatever, to introduce concepts or putting together YouTube videos, to introduce concepts of the system and how it works and things of that nature. And, relative to ability to task is, as you can see, we're hands full right now. But the point being is, I at least wanted to bring that idea up, and that's why that one bullet says, do we need training videos? So thank you, Connor. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh, Bob, you're too polite. You're raising your hand all the time. You got to.
I've been reprimanded too many times. I know my place now.
I was going to tell you, this is sort of like the family table with, if your arm's not long enough to reach the chicken, you aren't eating. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, I just want to add in on Connor's comments. I've worked with Planet Underground many times in the past, and when you think about this type of solution, there's definitely room for a lot of screen recording videos where you highlight the correct button to push in the menu to get this result. And I've seen a lot of video that's been created by them in that fashion, and it's very intuitive and educational videos, even somewhat of a knowledge base, so to allow people to onboard onto this and be walked through it by themselves. I think that'd be really impactful.
Okay, thank you for the comment.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. I can share my screen a little bit if no one else has anything else to say, just to show you guys our program. And then I sent you a brochure, Steve, that we put together. It's kind of just a partner with the training program. It's a lot. It's about 89 pages, but it does a really good job of just illustrating how our training looks. We just took basically screenshots of all the different videos we put together and put it into almost like a magazine format. So I don't know if you
I think we would like to keep it on a higher level for right now.
Yeah.
So by all means, if there's documents or links to videos or whatever that you think would be beneficial for the leadership team to consider, please, by all means, send those to me. I apologize if they've gotten buried in my, hundreds of emails, but I will make sure that gets passed along and we'll bring it up for a point of consideration. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I'll put a link in the chat here to our website, or the training LMS site. So if anyone's interested, they can check it out.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd really like that. Thanks.
Problem. Just sent it.
I don't know, Barb. Are we gonna have to call on people? Don't you hate when we have to do that? What do you think, Dean? I'm gonna hit you up. Where do you think we need to go next? Stay focused on what we're doing and forget about the rest?
Well, you know me. I'm always, looking at the quality and the user friendliness of the product. So those items in particular are of interest to me, and I know that's yet to be worked on.
Yeah,
I'll be interested in getting something together with Dan, at some point along the line.
I made a note, how do we organize this outreach to get things done? Maybe there's, like we've done on some of these other projects, we've got a few people, but it takes a long time. Maybe there's 4 or 5 people that we just organize it and accelerate a few things. Bob volunteered for the LinkedIn. Maybe there's a few others that want to volunteer. And we just start meeting on a regular basis. We've got OCC Creative. I know Adam and Karen, and so that's a thought that I had.
I think the LinkedIn idea is a really good idea. Any way to start advertising it, and like Bob said, starting now, it does take a lot of time to build up your LinkedIn presence and followers. So I agree with starting now. I think you guys are ready for that. That's just my 2 cents.
Thank you.
I can chime in too. I would just say I feel like there's probably 2 tracks of promotion. One is, the business to business side of things, and then the second is the kind of innovative nature of this that might be interesting to trade publications and industry publications even, and facilitating the business to business marketing piece as well. So there's tons of opportunities when the content is developed and ready to show folks.
I think before you do any of that, you got to have a 2-minute infomercial ready to go. So if you're putting something on LinkedIn, they can go ahead and click on a YouTube video and watch a 2-minute infomercial explaining everything, something that's exciting, and builds a little bit of momentum. Otherwise, it's just kind of falling flat and they'll ignore your posts.
Yeah, I'd lean towards that same approach for the LinkedIn side too.
Now, the CGA is completing a high-level video on this. They've interviewed key stakeholders like the person from MnDOT and Phil here and others. Not Phil, Rob. They did Rob from Colorado DOT. So that should be ready in November.
How
That's
long
what
is
I
that
heard.
supposed to be, Barb?
Like 3 minutes.
Oh, that'd be good.
Yeah, plus a white paper, a little info page to go with it, so you could send it out by mail as well. But the
Cool.
point was is to be impactful leaders in the organizations and them talking about the need for mapping and access to maps.
I'm gonna go off the rails and just speak. I know that. So the data collection side, that's really coming up next. But from my experiences, where in my role, there's a lot of hardware providers out there. And Travis, I'm sure this will be your expertise. But is there a plan to broaden the net when you think about today's hardware in the field to ensure connectivity issues are resolved and that type of thing as we move into this next leg?
We had talked about that, Steve, about, that I brought it up to have kind of a FuzionView ready kind of stamp on things, but we would have to have some kind of brochure or something to give to manufacturers and products to let them know what it would take to be FuzionView ready. So they can fall into that place, because it would be something, the consumer is going to want to know, does this, if I buy this equipment, is it going to, am I going to be able to get my data into FuzionView eventually? So,
Steve, I think that kind of it gets summed up into like adding it into as another document in the list that you've been working with Karen and everything in. So,
yeah, we're getting some powerful insights here. Yeah, absolutely. They're so good. I don't want to quit, but everybody's like, "It's a nice day outside, Steve. Will you let us go, please?" All right. What do you think, Barb?
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
Steve, if I could just add something too. If there's any, specific, I know we talked about Barb and Bob being kind of the information managers and what we release to public right now. But if there's ways that you want us to start sharing information with folks, I think there's enough of us that have been on these calls that do training, and we do get up in front of larger groups, and we, maybe speak more to our products. But this is certainly something that we can add a slide into our PowerPoint presentation and do a brief discussion on it with these target audiences. If there's specific information, and just controlling that message, maybe put together a couple slides and share it with us, and we can use them in those presentations.
Barb, I was wondering about something similar to that, maybe a condensed version of the, presentation that we've been running all along, something along the lines of, that this is out there all the time and we just keep it kind of updated and put it someplace for download.
Great comments. I think that that a form of outreach that Paul's talking about, I think would be ultimately well supported to have something like that would align with the decision maker overview document, where the high points get hit, and then want to know more takes them over to the website / info sheets. So great comment, I think, Paul. Thank you.
Yeah, Paul, you're more talking about the awareness, not all the gory details. Right.
Yes, just awareness, quick overview, and direct them, like Steve mentioned, direct them to the website where they can gather a little bit more information as it becomes available. But getting out in front of folks, I mean, we're doing a lot of other training and interaction with the boots on the ground. So letting those boots on the ground run it up to their managers is a kind of a good way of letting things happen organically.
Well, to piggyback on what Paul's talking about, I'm involved in the Minnesota AWWA, American Waterworks Association. I'm involved with the MMUA, Minnesota Municipal Utilities Association, to just do like what Paul's saying when I do presentations, to just have a slide or two and share the link to the site to steer people to our site, I think would be a good way to start building that outreach and building that momentum. Shifting gears slightly, it dawned on me today as we were talking about this, and I'm looking at the chat and talking about, people talking about hearing about that initiative from Minnesota. I'd like to suggest let's try to come up with some catchy name for our initiative. I don't know if we hire a marketing group to help us, or we have a naming contest, or what we do. I'm an engineer, not a marketing person. But
yeah, I had the same thought, Kevin, because FuzionView's the product, is a software product, but everybody's been calling it the Minnesota project, right? Minnesota mapping project. And so as we go through here for all the one call centers, what is a better name? You're right.
Even on that point, are things getting to a point where maybe it's beneficial to start to create some task teams for some of these type of topics, like a marketing and outreach task team, and different task teams for different things that help spread the load around a little bit, and at the same time make more resources available to this initiative.
Yes.
I think that's a great idea because we've already talked about the need to get some feedback on the software, so that we can make sure that the usability is what people are expecting, and see if there's any things that we've been looking at it for so long. What are some things that people who are looking at it fresh, what do they think? What are some ideas that they have or problems that they discover?
So it does seem like we need another swim lane here, Steve. Back in the pool we go, as they say.
The only problem is you need swimmers, Barb.
Yeah, you need swimmers, right? Well, Bob volunteered.
Yeah, I think there's some swimmers here, but if you break out what the need is, it's easier for people to say, "Hey, I can help with that."
Well, let me do some work on this then. I took a lot of some notes today with some topics. So, and I put people's names down that spoke up.
What do you think, Barb?
I think we're good.
Okay, the floor is still open for a slow count down to 3. Going once, going twice, gone. All right, so what else do we got left for slides? There it is. Next meeting, Thursday, December 5th. Get out there, enjoy fall colors and all that good stuff. And then show back up here on December 5th, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Final chance. Anyone else out there with whatever comment you want? Going once, going twice. Barb, it's over to you.
Well, just say thank you. I appreciate all the dialogue and discussion. I made a note that I'll work on proposing some task teams and reach out to various folks on this call and a few others.
Thank you very much. And that takes us down to the information item of the day, which is none other than one disadvantage of having nothing to do is that you can't stop and rest. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Okay.
Thanks for being here. Totally appreciate your efforts. Take care.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everyone.